Yeah, we don't. He could have a little bit of sidewall damage there to the car that could be affecting his aerodynamics just a little bit, but here comes Doug thinking about a move to the outside, going down into the chicane. He's going to have to be very brave to do it and pulls it off. Oh, you can't get a whole lot closer than that. My goodness gracious.
Let's take a look at this from the hood, because this is where Partridge needs to change his pants, and Kinchler probably does too after he saw what happened in his mirrors. But Partridge comes in too hot, clips that inside curve, gets unsettled, then he's on the brakes. We're going to go in slow-mo here to see how close it was, and it was very close.
Yeah, the top three have been an incredible fight. Oh man.
Gently does it, boys, as they make their way down. They bang wheels. Oh, Sebastian Tixier, he goes tumbling over. Trengarade going off the circuit. Goodness gracious, looked like Jim Shedlick went off the track in sympathy there.
This is the view that he has going through. He sees a couple lights in the distance, trying to get it rejoined.
Oh, that's not good. Careful, boys, careful. Too wide coming up, Eau Rouge. And the loser there is going to be Vaughn as Karthik Pai keeps his foot in it. Vaughn going to lose another position there to Mika Lino. And Lino going to go for a 2-for-1 as they come down the Camel Straight. He has got such massive overspeed. Look at that move from the number 5 machine.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to ride around the world.
I'm Mick Claridge, and I'm going to ride around the world on my bike.
My son, he gave me advice at the start of this ride, and he looked at me and just said, "Dad, don't be a moron."
Let me do my animal signal to gain their respect.
How's it going, Sally?
Yeah, I'm alright, Mick. How's it going?
Worse than that bit in Lord of the Rings where they go into the top and the spiders in the tunnel. I'm just hoping there's a spider at the top of this one to kill me.
Freezing. And I failed. I moroned up the ride.
Daytona is a track many of the drivers have certainly run in the sim, but Sonoma takes it one step further and is a circuit that a lot here have raced in real life. They'll need that experience today because this place is known for its technical and challenging layout. Will it provide an upset like last race? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 13 of the Porsche Owners Club Series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is DJ Clark. Behind the scenes is our director, Zach Johnson, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. This California venue has seen just about every type of racing you can think of it in its time. Let's head to our track guide to learn more. Welcome to Sonoma Raceway, one of California's most famous road courses. It resides just north of San Francisco. It's been host to a wide variety of styles of racing, including sports cars, Indy cars, motorcycles, and even drag racing. But in recent decades, it's become most well known for holding one of NASCAR's rare road course weekends. For most tracks, this cornucopia would be a stretch, but considering the array of 5 different layouts to choose from, it's quite easy for the circuit to be adapted to any series needs. Most of the layouts clock in at around 2 to 2.5 miles in length and always feature an impressive amount of elevation change. This means many of the corners present the driver with a blind entry or apex. Some of these have a very distinct visual look, making them instantly recognizable. Corners such as the chute and the final hairpin feature street course-like walls surrounding the track, while the carousel is both picturesque and challenging. With few long straights, passing is often considered very difficult, but it rarely leaves races with a lack of action. Mistakes can be easy to make, offering opportunities for the brave. And it's not just the track itself which is tough. The pit entry's narrow path requires precise driving for those looking to make up time and leapfrog their competitors during stops. With more than 40 years of racing under its belt, Sonoma has become a staple for West Coast race fans. And what could be better than a glass of vino on a sunny hillside while the sound of engines echo around you? Well, DJ, this is certainly going to be a challenge coming back to the endurance format here today and at this place, which tends to generate mistakes.
Yeah, indeed it does, Joe. And indeed, those mistakes are going to be the primary way I think you're going to see overtakes get done around here today. There are really only two primary overtaking opportunities on the track as it stands. That's going to be going down into turn 7, the run down the end of the drag strip into the sort of double apex, almost hairpin type corner there at the end, and then the true hairpin done all the way at turn 11. Outside of that, specifically through the first sector and down through the S's, it's going to be a lot of follow the leader. And when you're dealing with the elevation change that comes along with the run through turns 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, it's very, very easy to get the cross weight a little bit wrong, have a little bit too much roll into the car, and dip a tire off into the grass. So drivers are going to have to be very, very careful not to do that.
Going to have to be focused all the way through these 90 minutes today. But before we get to the racing, we want to remind you about our sponsor, Porsche. There is no substitute. Find out more at Porsche.com. And Sunset Mortgage. Don't put your money in the bank. Be the bank. Check them out today at sunsetcash.net. And Octavio Tequila. Celebrate now. For a great tasting tequila, go to octaviotequila.com and purchase today. And finally, Century Financial Consultants, making the rest of your life the best of your life. You can check out their website at centuryretire.com. So if we take a look at the points championship, Tom Layton got beat last time out, but it wasn't by the driver in second place. Michael Johnson sitting back there, 34 points behind. It was Travis Brown that snuck by at the line and took the win away from Tom Layton, allowing him to close in a little bit more, but he's going to need to do that many more times to cut down on that points lead. Corey Lotfula behind them needs a little bit better results as well, but he's only about 12 points behind Travis Brown right now, so he's not too far out of it. From there on down, things start to drop off dramatically. Ost and Bolton in a very tight fight for 5th position, as well as BJ Fulton and Jacob Abrams, as well as Sam Mayorga and Doug Baccignone, all kind of squabbling for the 7th spot in the points. But our main trio, quartet rather, they're up at the top of the ones that are trying to fight for the championship. What about today's race details here, DJ?
Well, as you mentioned, Joe, this is one of the endurance rounds here for around 13 of 25 over the course of the season. It's going to be a 90-minute race out there for these Porsche 911 GT3Rs. And crucially, what that means is we're going to see pit stops here today. These drivers are not going to be able to make it to the end of the race on a single tank of fuel. So that is going to change a few things up. But it is open setups out there, so drivers are able to tweak and tune the cars a little bit to get the handling right for themselves around this tricky Sonoma layout. The one catch with that, though, is this is a very, very open community, and a lot of sharing of those setups are allowed. So watch for a couple of drivers probably to be running similar setups.
Indeed, and this race is going to take it pretty well into the evening. You can see we're already seeing the sun going down a little bit. It's just past 6:30 virtual standard time, 6:30 p.m. And the temperatures are actually in pretty good range, it seems, right now already. 84 Fahrenheit with a little bit of wind. That could upset things, especially these GT3 cars. They have a fair bit of aerodynamic devices on them, DJ.
Yeah, they definitely do, and so you're going to get a little bit of that buffeting coming around, and it will help a little bit, I think, if you're going up the drag strip. You may get a little bit of headwind there, and that could help to build a little bit more of a draft, but where you've really got to watch it as we watch a car spinning out there and barely catching it is coming through the S's there, the high-speed, high-commitment areas. You get a little bit of a crosswind there coming across the car that can really throw off the handling.
And that was Travis Brown, actually, that we saw that had quite the moment and then took it into pit lane. He's going to want to practice that pit entry as another driver there coming along the drag strip having issues. Didn't quite see who that was, though, but right now, Paul Newton in the 27. Coming out of the drag strip and back down towards the S's. Sits in third. Great qualifying for Paul as it stands right now. However, he's a full second off of Tom Layton. It seems like the guys are once again struggling to stay close to him, especially since we're away from Daytona, where the draft helped a lot in that qualifying session. But not so here today, DJ. You touched on how tough it is to pass. There's just not a lot of long straights here, is there?
Yeah, there really aren't, Joe. In running this this specific layout where we have the sweeper S's going down the hill as opposed to the sharp right-hander that exists on another layout, it really eliminates one of those braking zones. And you kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier with the wind and the increased aerodynamics on these cars. You're going to get a little bit of aero wash coming through that area, so you've got to be very careful about lining up your pass. So we watch here coming down onto the drag strip. This is going to be one of your better opportunities if you can stick nice and close behind the carousel and send a good move into turn 7. That may be your best shot to get a move done.
BJ Fulton just glancing the apexes there as he comes around. He's in 6th currently, still recovering a little bit physically from his wreck many months ago, earlier this year, and seems to be getting a handle on things. But the driver behind him that we were catching glances of before we hopped on board, Michael Johnson, doesn't seem to be doing too well here today. His qualifying has gotten better in recent times, been usually among the top 5. And today, right now, with 5 minutes left to go, he's still sitting in 12th. And I don't think this is a fast lap for him right now. So he's going to have to start hustling it.
Yeah, he's going to have to get a little bit of a move on here. And you know, ultimately, I'm not too surprised to see a little bit of shuffling around in the order, Joe. Sonoma is a track that you either love it or you hate it. It's all about finding that rhythm around here. And if you're off just a little bit in one corner or two, it can really throw you off for the entire rest of the lap and just completely scupper your chances.
Now that one was an out lap, it looks like, for Michael, and unfortunately put a little bit offline there by John Momeyer, who was trying to stay out of the way. But Johnson had to go the long way around through turn 5, and unfortunately down through the carousel. He finds himself spinning around, and if he takes a toe here, no, oh, that was very close. It's a blind corner, and Chang and Baccignone just about ran into the side of him, but thankfully they did not actually make contact. He's able to get back on his way. So he'll really have to try and get a good one here. He's only maybe got 2 or 3 more laps to try and set a better time here. It is Michael Johnson. Baccignone up into 7th, though, at this point. Chang, I don't think we've seen Michael Chang yet this season. The name does not ring a bell for me. I'll have to check the stats here to see if I'm just forgetting his arrival, but he's in 20th right now, so he's also got some work to do in this qualifying session.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Joe, that Michael's name not necessarily ringing a bell, but always good to have some new blood coming into the Porsche Owners Club here as he works his way onto the curving start-finish straightaway here, and we watch him come up this hill. This is such a tricky corner through turn 1 and then onto the braking zone here for turn 2. You've got to be cranking in some steering lock as you're applying brake pressure, and then you have to do the most terrifying thing in the world as a driver, which is basically take both feet off the pedal and let the car coast up and over the curb and then lightly get onto the throttle. You don't do it exactly perfectly, and you're going to find yourself in a world of trouble.
You know, we just, I guess, have poor memories here because we were so distracted by the battle for the win back at Daytona. Michael Chang was there this last round. Didn't finish terribly high up the order, but he is still a bit of a newcomer, but this is only his 2nd race of the season here in the Porsche Owners Club Series. And we'll see if maybe he can have a better finish this time out. They've got a number of cars that are in pit lane, so they feel comfortable enough with their qualifying time, or they just don't feel like they can improve much more than they did, and are sitting and waiting for the clock to tick down. And Johnson is just coming out now. He's only going to have time for one more lap out there. So he better try and make it a good one and a clean one, or else he'll have the unenviable task of having to make a lot of overtakes at this track. And you can see a lot of the dust being kicked up out here in California as the drivers test the limits of this circuit. And down into turn 4, Corey Latvala still down in 10th himself. I mentioned he's one of those top 4 in the points, and seems like a lot of drivers a bit out of position, as DJ was mentioning, that it seems like it has shuffled things up as he comes onto the drag strip.
Yeah, and Corey here, I think the position you're going to be in if you are in that spot of Corey Latvala, Michael Johnson, any of those drivers that find themselves a little bit farther down, including Alex Filsinger, who it's good to see back in the series after a little bit of time away. Some of those drivers, it's just all going to be about patience. 90 minutes out on the track. You've just got to sort of methodically go through this race, not try to take any low percentage moves into big dive bombs into corners or anything like that. Just let the race come to you. You may not be able to catch Tom Layton up front. Granted, nobody's really been able to catch Tom Layton up front thus far this year. But if you can just eke your way forward bit by bit, you can probably find yourself in the top 5 by the end of the race.
Latvala looks like he's better than his quickest time, according to the sectors so far. And indeed, a 28.1 is going to give him a quicker time, but not a higher position. Looks like his 0.2 improvement was just shy of Duncan. He spins out on this latest lap, which means he is done with qualifying. So 10th is the best he will see.
All right, as that is going to be it there for him. We watch Michael W. Johnson trying to work a little bit more as he's going to go on his flying lap right now. Looks pretty clean there through the first couple of corners. Always found this one incredibly difficult to find the apex there. That downhill right-hander, very, very tricky to get right.
Yeah, so many of them are blind or just have an odd camber to them. And looks like as the checkered flag comes out, AJ Lettieri is going to be our first driver to complete qualifying. He sits in 19th and he stays in 19th as he's not able to go any quicker. Molmeyer abandons his final lap as we continue to watch to see if Michael Johnson can go any quicker. Jeffrey Shulam will be across the line before Johnson reaches there. So far, so good from what we've witnessed here as we were riding on the rooftop of that purple number 9. I'm watching Shulam, and it's going to be close on whether or not he improves. Johnson does look like he is up on his best lap. Shulam does not go faster around the final hairpin. There's a couple corners that don't require any braking, so from here it is foot to the floor, and it's also going to be close for Johnson. He lost a little bit of time on the latter part of the lap, but he does go quicker. A 28.4 is half a tenth faster. He stays in 12th, unfortunately.
Oh, and that's so frustrating there as a driver to improve on your best time and not do anything. Let's see if Michael Bolton is able to pull a rabbit out of the hat here. He's going to cross over the line, and looks like no improvement there for the 127. And Joe, I think that's going to round out the qualifying cars.
It does, and our 23 drivers will have to battle for 90 minutes out here today. But at the top of them, it'll be Tom Layton once again on the pole position. He's taken a lot of them this season. Travis Brown was second as Paul Newton finished in P3. It was Michael Bolton who will start from 4th as Sam Mayorga will be P5. And it's BJ Fulton starting from the 6th position. 4th row has Doug Baccignone starting 7th and Mark Rondeau 8th. Jad Duncan will be 9th, followed by Corey Latvala rounding out your top 10.
In 11th, it's going to be Matt Hollander, followed by Michael W. Johnson with Jeffrey Shulam and Andrew Beckner behind them. Alex Filsinger will be 15th, followed by Mark Bray with Aaron Edwards and Dan Fendick in row 9 behind them. AJ Lettieri is 19th, and Michael Chang rounds out your top 20.
Dung Nguyen will start 21st. Ting Wan will be 22nd. John Molmeyer is tail end Charlie on the fields here of our 23 starters. So as we wait for them to grid up, Pace Car is going to lead them around, and away we go. Let's hope everybody's got their pitch strategy in order for this one. And can anybody stop Tom Layton from taking yet another victory in this series? He's already up to 7 wins here. in the Porsche Owners Club Series, and we're on round 13. So he's won more than half of the races in this year-long season. And we've only just crossed over the halfway point of said season. So this is looking like he is the one with the target on his back. It's just a question of whether or not anybody can actually hit that target. So get a little bit of cloud cover here, DJ, and I'm sure that's going to continue to cool things down quite a bit at the start, which I'm sure they'll appreciate at the beginning of this race, wanting to try and preserve those tires, no doubt.
Yeah, most certainly. I think that is going to be one of the stories we talk about. There's a lot of lateral load that get put through these tires here, especially if you have any drivers that unfortunately slide outside the track or anything like that, catch a little bit of that dirt. That's going to scuff up those tires a little bit more. And the optimal strategy here is not going to be able to take tires on your pit stop, not double stint or two double stint on those tires. But it's going to have to be seen if drivers are able to do that, if they can keep everything nice and easy.
And Michael Johnson, we mentioned about his poor qualifying, is kind of following up with a bad performance back at Daytona as well. Only scored 4 points on that one. So he's, if the qualifying pace is anything to go by, our second place in the points might not be there after today's race. There's looks like 7 between himself and Travis Brown, and Travis certainly looks to be fairly quick here today. So as we see the sun glinting off of the cars as they crest over the hills, they get one little chance to try and do whatever they need to do to prepare for this race, DJ, and then it's up to themselves to try and execute.
Yeah, exactly. And this point, and because those temperatures are a little bit cooler, I think you're going to see drivers specifically doing a lot of weaving back and forth, going up the drag strip, making sure plenty of heat is into those tires. You've really got to be, frankly, a little bit aggressive if you want to do anything going into those first couple of corners. You don't want to be doing that on cool tires.
Definitely not. And as they get ready to head through the hairpin at the end of the drag strip, as DJ was talking about earlier, it's a wide run through there. It's got those 2 apexes that are sort of squared off, which can make it interesting, no doubt. There's a wide variety of lines on that one, and then once more through the S's. This is not like they do with IndyCar, where they straight line it into a chicane at the end of it. It heads all the way down to the fearsome turn 10, which has very little runoff to save you if you make any sort of mistake. The good news is they do have a spare car waiting for them if they wind up binning it at any point on the track. However, if you have to take an extra pit stop and it's not during the pit sequence, you are out of luck. So they now head past the pit entry here, and the pace car should peel in. There it goes, giving control to Tom Layton. He is not allowed to accelerate until they get the green flag from Barney the flagman here. So he's going to let everybody stack up out of the hairpin. They all get nice and tidy here as they wait for the signal. Travis Brown is going to want to be eager on this one as the green flag is out. And it looks like Layton is decent on it. Somebody back there, it looks like maybe Sam Mayorga with a huge run, but then he decides to lift a little bit as they come up into turn 2. This is often a scene of a lot of action on the first lap. Let's see how they handle it here in this group. And so far, so good. I'm amazed everybody's through.
Yeah, Joe, everybody's through there, and it was 2-3 wide almost all the way through the field. Very, very impressive stuff. Now as they crest over the hill there, coming up through turns 3 and 3A and down into 4, starting to make out a little bit more single file. Corey Lotvola a little bit side by side there in the back, but Tom Layton starting to streak away at the front of the field.
Yeah, he and Holland are very close together, nearly banging doors a couple times already on this lap. Neither one is willing to give way. And behind them, going a little bit wide, that was Alex Filsinger, who had to catch the car before it went into the dirt. I think Lotvola finally has that 11th spot under wraps, and indeed, he is able to rebuff Matt Hollander. Michael Johnson already up 3 positions on the start.
Well, that's just a little bit of that controlled aggression that you needed to see there coming up through the first couple of corners of the hill. Michael knew that his tires were in good operating windows, knew exactly what his grip level was able to be, and was able to send the car up the hill and do a great job.
Sending the car at the front of the field is Tom Layton, already 1.3 seconds ahead of everybody else at the line as they complete the first lap. Travis Brown doesn't seem to have the pace. Michael Bolton, though, look at the pressure that he's been putting on Travis here over the last few corners. He's within about half a second of him, a little wide there from the 79 car. That's going to slow him up slightly, but Bolton's not in a good place for passes, so he just continues to close for now.
Well, Joe, I think what you just said there, pressure, that is going to be the key to this race. If I'm in Michael Bolton's shoes, I want to keep as close behind that number 79 as humanly possible. Just keep up behind us. Oh, we've had a car around. It's Corey Lockvilla.
Oh, he made a mistake dipping the wheels off before turn 4. He's having to wait patiently for the field to go by before he can clearly get onto the track without causing problems. So he is all the way down to dead last in 23rd. And I think he just went wide at 3A, and that's what caused his issues. We'll see if we can pull the replay up on that.
Well, it's a very easy thing to do here, Joe. When you get those tires off to the outside, it is just begging you to catch on. We watch here, Lockvilla, yep, you called it exactly right. Went wide onto 3A, tried to catch the car. Whew, I don't know how he managed to avoid contact there with everybody else around him, but that was, I think, Corey just pushing a little bit too hard coming up the crest.
Gave Hollander a real scare there coming down into the braking zone. Couldn't quite figure out where that car was going to wind up. Matt now up into that 11th spot that he wanted before. Oh, behind them just had a little bit of problems. Looks like Beckner making contact, I think, with Jeffrey Shulam. He's back onto the course, but he falls down to 17th. That was in the hairpin. And, is he slow now, or is he just redressing? He's redressing the position, I think.
Yeah, I think he's redressing the position. He also may have picked up a little bit of a slowdown there as he did technically cut through that corner a little bit. Oh, no, he's broke. Look at the damage on the right-hand side of that car. I wonder if there's suspension damage there, Joe.
You're right. He's got a meatball flag. He is going to be forced to come into the pits, and he is definitely not within the pit window here. So an extra pit stop for Andrew Beckner is going to put paid for to his hopes for any sort of good finish here today. Well, the first lap was relatively clean. It was the second one that saw a lot of the action start to erupt here today. And that's put a few drivers on the back foot, no doubt. Lockvilla gains a couple spots because of that drama into the hairpin. He's already back up into 21st and trying to gather up more of those positions as he goes. Tom Layton on your screen, though, in that 97, about 2 seconds ahead of Travis Brown right now. So continuing to peel away, but not quite as quickly as he did on that first lap.
No, and I think that's a little bit there maybe of Travis just being cautious on that first lap, not wanting to go too hard. Michael W. Johnson there and Chad Duncan having a coming together through the hairpin. That appears to be the inflection point early on in this race.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Michael just breaking a little too deep, it seems, and Chad Duncan was not expecting him to be there and came across him. Duncan, is he also damaged because he's going slow? No, I'm not seeing any flags for him. So not sure if he just felt like he was at fault there and he's giving the spot to Michael Johnson, but he also gave up the one to Alex Filsinger there. So that's 11th for the 950. And that sends Duncan down into the 12th spot. Behind them, we got some side-by-side action between Chang and Lethierry. And it looks like Michael Chang is going to get that spot. He is up 7 positions in that yellow machine.
Making a name here for himself early on in this 90-minute race. And just a quick report there on Chad Duncan. There is a little bit of damage to the rear diffuser on that car. So that could be a little bit of a loss of rear grip and rear downforce there for the number 83.
Yep. Duncan just carrying on, though, in the meantime. And sitting right behind Filsinger, pretty close. He could have an attack if he can keep with him, but man, you talked about the aero wake earlier, and look at how fast he drops behind. He was within a couple car lengths. Now it's gone up to about 5 car lengths between the pair of them once they hit the braking into the hairpin. And oof, but he is very good on those brakes heading into there. Behind them, yet more action. You can see them coming off, and in fact, they come together. Michael Chang goes around, and he runs into the side of Edwards, who smashes into the wall because of it.
Oh, and that was just a simple case there. Was spinning those rear tires there for Michael Chang. Rear engine, rear wheel drive Porsches here, and that means that it's very, very easy to spin those rear tires coming in specifically through low speed corners. That was Chang just being a little bit too aggressive on the throttle pedal, and that is some massive damage for Aaron Edwards.
I think it was the tip on the left rear of the car just getting caught there right at the end. More suspension damage, also being given the black and orange flag, being told he needs to come in and get that car repaired. This has been a bit of a miserable start for a number of runners here, and side-by-side action for Fendick and Latvala. Nice move down into the carousel for that 22. That gets him into 17th. He is not wasting time.
No, he's not, and I think this 22 is going to be a car to watch for some fun over the course of this race. Obviously, a solo spin there early on. I think Corey's going to be a little bit upset with himself, maybe driving with a little bit of the red mist, but he is certainly making a side through the field right now.
His quickest lap, though, is a 1:30.7, and that would only put him maybe into the top 10 at the pace that I'm looking at right now. Throughout the field. So I'm not sure how high he can climb, but the pace is looking good. Granted, that may have been with some overtakes that he's had to do as the 22 comes around the hairpin a lot cleaner than some of the other drivers. Michael Chang up in front of him, not within touching distance quite yet, but 2.5 up the road. I'm sure that, 9/10 up the road that he's got to make up. I'm sure that will be quite a bit less soon here.
Yeah, it certainly will. You can just see there coming out of the corners. That's a big plume of brake smoke there, and it looks like we've got a problem there for the 69, I believe. That is that, yeah,
Filsinger.
That is 69 is Filsinger.
And he gets back onto the track in a bit of an awkward way, kind of ran in front of, I think it was Mark Bray there. And then Corey Latvala had another off at turn 3A. This time, though, did not spin the car. He kept it together. Otherwise, I think he would have been caught up to Filsinger and passed him if he hadn't have had that little oops coming over the crest. Still, he flies down into the first of the hairpins, and they all send it deep, trying to square it off that double apex. Back into the S's they go, and still not able to quite catch up to Filsinger on that time. Was not a faster lap for Corey Latvala, even though he was mostly in clear air that time by a 31.3, much slower than his previous lap.
Yeah, and that's not what Corey's going to want to see here. But again, 90-minute race. He's just got to really focus himself down here, calm himself down, especially, and not let that red mist take over. He's got to be nice and careful here and make those high percentage moves. The last thing he wants to see is seeing himself lose more positions because of a costly error.
Is closing in bit by bit here. I'm half watching this, and I'm also keeping an eye on BJ Fulton and Paul Newton for 4th place, because they've been separated by very little higher up the fields. But it seems like Corey's going to give us the action first here at the back of things, trying to get himself 16th place. Both of them using all of the track and then some, as Filsinger has it down now to 0.3 of a second. His mirrors are full of that red 22.
Yeah, and watch here. We've seen Corey be able to make some moves going down into the carousel. Takes a little bit of a narrower line there. That was a big bobble from Filsinger, and goodbye, Corey Latvala.
Wow. The rear of the car very unstable coming down through the carousel for Filsinger. He was very lucky that he caught it, frankly, and I think he had to do so twice before he finally had it under decent control. Corey up to P16. Next on the list, Michael Chang, who he had seen earlier before the problems for Filsinger. There is that bright yellow number 10 machine just in front of him. But Chang's still on a good run. He was up 7 spots at one point. He's still got 5 to the positive from where he began today.
Yes, he does, and that is good news for him, and he's just got to keep buckled down here. Again, plenty of long racing to do. Had that early error, but that doesn't mean that he's not able to gain more positions as we go along. These cars are going to get harder and harder to drive the closer we get to zero on the clock as the tires start to wear away, and the less input you put in now, the more you're going to be able to use at the end of the race.
Using up his stuff right now. Corey Lotvilla is already on the bumper. Don't think he's going to get anything down into turn 4, at least this time, as they swing around there much tighter to the apex for the 22 car. Still not easy to try and make passes in this part of the track. He's going to take a look down into the carousel. Don't think that was a serious attempt, and just about has a second look through the middle of the corner. That may cost him. This is where he needed that exit, coming down to the braking for the hairpin, and yeah, he is not nearly close enough.
Yeah, and that's just a little bit of that impatience coming through there, Joe, as now he's going to look down to the inside of turn 7, trying to see if there's something to do there, but not taking it. I think if he had backed up the carousel just a little bit, not as been as aggressive down to the inside line there, he could have easily gotten the move done on Michael Chang, but carries massive speed through the S's.
Side by side through turn 10. Do they dare? They dare. And they're going to get through the other side. But a little bit of defense as a better exit allows Chang to try and defend the overlap. And for him, he's going to keep the spot, maybe trying for the over-under. It looks like the 22 wants to try and come back at him, getting the grip down off the hairpin. But again, it is not enough, and it is hard to try and make this one up into turn 2. Even this close, look at how tight he is, that rear bumper. He's not nearly close enough to try and get some overlap up into that right-hander.
No, and indeed, they're pushing a little bit too hard. You saw him kick up some dirt on the exit of turn 2, just trying to take every inch of the track that he can. Let's see if Corey's going to be a little bit more cautious now coming down through the carousel. He's got the run, he's got the grip, he's got the momentum. Oh, he's not waiting around. He's sending it down to the inside. Now that'll be the outside of the carousel.
A little bit of a slip up as he touched the grass on the right-hand side through 5, but it didn't hamper him. He's around, and I think Lotvilla's got the spot now. It was unorthodox, but it worked, and he's now into 15th. We've had a problem for Phil Singer. He slips up once again, coming down through the carousel. Oh! And he hit by Aaron Edwards, who spins off the course and into the side of the hill. And what is Edwards' situation? I think he is okay. No, he's got a meatball flag. Edwards, unfortunately, is going to have to come in and be the latest to need repairs.
Yeah, and you can see there just how hard that car is handling some massive crabbing there, and I've got a sneaking suspicion he's going to be taking a tow, and that's indeed what he does there.
He's already used one of his spare cars. He's had a meatball flag once already today, and now he's got to use up a second one if he decides to carry on. Not sure if he will, because he's already a lap down, 2 laps down, really, at the very back of the field. Meanwhile, as we take a look at the battle here between BJ Fulton and Sam Mayorga chasing him at the front of it. Paul Newton having an excellent day for him. He's still down 1 from where he started this race, but seeing him flying this high is certainly good to see him finding improvement in the series, especially in the GT3 cars. See if he can maybe catch up to Michael Bolton. It's about a 1.5 seconds separating them right now, so that's not impossible to run down.
No, it's certainly not, Joe. And you know, we've seen this sort of renewed pace for him out of the past couple of rounds. Paul had a really good run out in Daytona. He's up in the standings right now. He seemed to just come alive over the course of the past 4 or 5 races. I think really unlocking something in this GT3.
Well, as he crosses to start lap 11 now, BJ Fulton still hot on his heels. And BJ's improvement has also been something to behold, having to make a physical recovery here. And I think even in that last lap, let's see, Fulton with a 29.3, Newton with a 29.0. So yeah, 0.3 faster last time by for that orange and blue number 423 car. He keeps that up, he is going to be threatening for 4th pretty soon.
Yes, he is. So we're going to have to keep our eyes on that battle. And once again, this is going to be a race of tenths here. We're not talking about massive gains like we saw at Daytona, where you're able to wipe away nearly a second courtesy of the draft. This is going to be just working your way through the corners, getting a little bit here, getting a little bit there, and slowly putting that pressure on the driver in front of you.
Oh, we had an accident. Mark Bray just got tipped around by Michael Chang, and he's kind of stuck there. Now he's going to find an opening to be able to get going. Don't hit the advertising. There we go. And back onto the course and on his way. But that was a bit rude. Let's see if we can get a replay there with the contact with the 10 car.
All right, so this is coming down into the corner. Chang there behind sends a little bit of a late move, it has to be said, going down into that corner. Yeah, I can see the impetus to be able to go for it, but that door was always going to disappear there for Michael Chang.
Yeah, it's not a place you expect passes to happen. But Michael Chang kind of forced the issue there, and that does get him into 15th, back up to the 5 positions gained, where he's been at for part of this race, but not all of it. Latvala still kind of running away from him, and Latvala's actually dealing with lap traffic right now. It looks like Alex Filsinger just in front of him, so that's not for position. That still could cause some headache for the 22, because he can see Jeffrey Shulam up in front of him, and he knows that's the next car that he needs to pass. So he needs to dispose of Alex pretty quickly.
Yeah, he needs to try to get by him as quick as possible. And it looks like there with a little bit of a wide run that he's going to be able to do just that and get up on by. So another position regained here for Corey Latvala.
Now, I got to think this is probably not going to be the thirstiest of tracks, and these GT3 cars known for going, what about a little over an hour at most places. So we should see that pit window open up pretty soon if anybody wants to do an alternate strategy. But all those guys that have been in the pits, including Phil Singer and Beckner, are going to have to come in at least one more time.
Yeah, that is what we expect, Joe.
So down the front stretch as our drivers continue carrying on. Looks like Newton ahead of Fulton finds that gap continuing to disappear bit by bit. But last time Newton struck back, and he was a 1/10 of a second quicker than him last time by. However, he lost 2/10 on the previous lap. So it's 1 step forward, 2 steps backwards, unfortunately, for the 27.
Yeah, it just doesn't look like he's really able to get what he needs to get down here. But once again, still a very, very long race, and we don't know how hard Paul is pushing at this point. We don't know what his strategy is, and that can play into it. He could very well be just trying to save his stuff a little bit, save his tires, and wait as long as possible to be able to make a full attack.
Yeah, so much to this that is a little bit different from just the straightforward sprint we usually see. Phil Singer's in pit lane again. Did he get more damage from something? Oh yeah, he had another off. I don't think we need a replay for it, and he didn't hit anything. I was coming over 3A, which seems to be another one of our calamity corners, and Phil Singer has decided to quit the race. He is done for today. So already in the first half hour, in the first 20 minutes, we've lost 2 of our 23 runners.
Yes, we have, and I think that is really just a sign of how difficult this Sonoma Raceway is, Joe. It is such a technical course, and one that is just prone to grab you if you put so much as a tire off. We watch right now, though, Corey Latvala all over the back of Jeffrey Shulam. Who was that spun around?
AJ Lettieri, unfortunately, in the 17, and I'm pretty sure he got the wall on that one. Lost control in the fearsome turn 10, and he is down to 16th. In fact, he's still stationary. I'm not sure if he just can't find a clear opening to get it spun around and facing the right way. He's so close to pit lane. Surely he doesn't want to try and tow it from here. Yeah, now he's able to get it turned back around in time.
Oh, clips the wall a little bit there and back into the wall. That may be a little bit of steering damage potentially on that car. Remember, these cars do have traction control, so you've got to have a button mapped on your steering wheel to be able to turn that off and spin the rear tires. Just carried too much speed through the corner, and the car went around on him.
Ugh, and that was a hard hit. What this did do, those cars you saw going by, was Schulem actually getting overtaken because he was being distracted, I got to think, by this incident. Look at him try to brake a little bit. He sees the smoke, holds off to the left-hand side, but braked a little bit on the exit, and that put him close enough to be attacked by the 22. Latvala says, thank you very much. That'll get me now 12th position. So, yeah, you talked about the game of inches, and that's what Latvala is playing here, just getting first down after first down, and that's almost gotten him up into the top 10.
Yes, it has, but he has now got a Herculean task to be able to gain a couple of more positions up in front of him. He's got a whopping 17 seconds to try to gain up to Jad Duncan right now as they go. Really, really big gap to be able to close in on.
Yeah, that's a massive one compared to what he saw on all the others. It was kind of car after car for the most part, even if they were about 2 seconds apart. This one is going to take some time. And Duncan's laps, let me see what he is running. 30.1, 29.3, 30.3. Latvala, 29.8, 30.1, 30.3. They're pretty close on pace. So unless Latvala was being held up and now he's able to be unleashed now that he's not fighting anyone, it's going to be a long, hard haul for him to just catch Jad Duncan here today. But we're getting ready to hit that 1/3 mark and still waiting for others to hit the mark into pit lane and find their stall. AJ Letary did come in and is taking repairs. Beckner has been in and out about 11 laps ago, so he'll have to come in at some point here in the next hour, in the next half hour, really. Before he is out of fuel. Meanwhile, on screen, coming down into the braking of the hairpin, Matt Hollander and Jad Duncan. And Duncan's looking around the outside and feeling a little frisky here, trying to see if he can get into the top 10, but Hollander's having none of it for now. Hollander up a single spot from where his race began.
Yeah, he is just running the line that he wants to run through that corner. That's good heads-up play there from Matt Hollander, not caving to the attack from behind, just doing what he would normally do through the corner.
Matt already had a bit of a scary moment earlier on in this race when he was fighting with Corey Latvala, and he spun right in front of him. So now can he play the defense on Jad Duncan as well? Heading down through the plunge of turn 5. A little bit of a rise there before turn 6, and then another huge drop. And they hit the bottom of it at the drag strip. Both of them using up as much of that outside curb as they can. And this is a good run out of Matt Hollander. He's way ahead, and that prevents Duncan from really having any opening into the hairpin.
Well, and that's one of the problems here if you are in that trailing car, is that you really have to just hope for a mistake. The way the layout runs around here, it is just so difficult now, especially through this sweeper section that we talked about, these S's. So much aero wash, you can visibly see the time there that Jad Duncan loses going through that section.
Duncan not under any pressure, as we talked about not long ago. Corey Latvala, full 16 seconds behind, so he really can focus forward on this one, but he seems a little stuck now that we've been following this. Just keeping the pressure on Hollander. And whoa! And instead, he succumbs to it as he goes way too deep into turn 2. I thought he was actually going to make contact there with the 69 for a moment.
I certainly did too, and he was very lucky that he was able to hold that back in and not let any of that come to him. They dive down into the corner there, and that's a little bit of the give and take that you have to do if you're the trailing car. It can be very easy to miss your braking point, focusing on the driver up in front of you, and you have to continue to just run your own line.
Off of the carousel one more time. Man, that is the strongest part of the track, it seems, for Matt Hollander, because once again, he lengthens the gap back to Duncan by a huge chunk. So he'll have to focus on that, no doubt. Use that to his advantage, see if he can continue to try and make distance over the 83 machine here in this race. And oh, is this a scheduled stop?
No.
That's Ting Wan. Oh, no, this is Rondeau, though, as well. Tingwan was in the pits. Rondeau is facing the wrong way, coming out of turn 10, has a much easier time getting turned around compared to Lethierry, and he is into pit lane. What if we could get a replay, see if it was a similar situation?
Here we come with the replay. This is him coming down through, and yep, same situation as before. The rear end of the car just wanting to back away on him there, and a hard lick into those tire barriers.
Unfortunate news for fans of Tingwan. She is out of this race. She has retired and called it quits. Rondeau has found his way to his pit stall, and I gotta expect that he's going to be taking his spare car. No, looked like a decent length stop here, and I don't see the number changing. Meanwhile, down into the hairpin, that's Tom Layton there on your screen in the 97. The gap that we haven't covered in quite some time has grown significantly. Travis Brown, 11.3 seconds between himself and Tom Layton. It's not looking good for his hopes of trying to take the victory. That said, we have seen mistakes out of Layton before. I think back to VIR, where he did not have that great of a race.
Well, and very similar characteristics in those two tracks here, Joe, is both are very tricky. Slicing the way through some of those slower cars. There was Tom Layton. That got a little bit sketchy. But VIR, very much a track where there's not a lot of runoff. Very, very easily punishable to you on the drivers. And we haven't really seen Layton in an extended long run here at this point. We haven't seen what his mental stamina is like over the course of a 90-minute race. So we could see maybe a little bit of a slip here later on.
Absolutely. And that was a lapped car that he went by. That was John Momeyer trying to stay out of the way. John's not been doing too bad. Yes, he's gotten lapped within the first 30 minutes, but he is up 7 positions now. He's equal with Michael Chang, who is back up to 7 positions, gained himself as well, with very different methods of doing so, though, because Momeyer has been pretty quiet. Oh, who is this off track?
Ooh, looks like Jeffrey Shulam there having a little bit of a problem coming up through the first sector.
So did that lose him any positions? Oh, well, that certainly did, as he goes off through 3A, and he found a little bit of the wall. That was a bit of his own doing, and then finished off, unfortunately, by Michael Chang, who didn't seem to have any place to go there up through that blind rise. So just kind of clanged into the back of him as that car spun in front. Let's take another look at it.
Yeah, it looks like he just comes over the hill here, misses that apex, gets out onto the grass, and just spins it around, and that looks like a little bit of a lapse of error there for the lapse of concentration there for him. And then here come the rest of those cars up behind, tries to carry a little bit speed through there, and just not seeming to be connected to the track there as he went.
Yeah, from there, it may have looked like a bit of a punt, but I can tell you that from what I could see on my angle, he was starting to spin already, so Chang just kind of finished him off. Chang now up into 12th position, and I guess Momeyer should be up one more as well to tie him on those 8 gains soon. No, Shulam is still carrying on. I thought maybe that sent him into pit lane. So Jeffrey, despite a little bit of contact, is able to at least keep it going. Chang right now is ahead of Dan Fendick there in that white car, the 327. And then behind them, that's Andrew Beckner, who's a lap down. So that's not 4 position with that blue and black machine there. So don't worry about that situation. Some other battles that we were watching earlier definitely spread apart. Newton and Fulton still at about a second. Oh, and this one's changing hands, though, as that was a big moment for Doug Boccignone. And he had not gained the position that he was hoping. He was catching up to Sam Mayorga, who was slow through the S's, and then trying to take it too wide through turn 10. Did not work out as Doug had hoped.
Yeah, not playing out there again. Just a little bit too much aggression, I think, from these drivers. They saw that clock tick down under the 1 hour mark, and maybe something's starting to tick over here for these drivers. Now, crucially, though, as we get closer and closer, these GT3 fuel cells tend to last about 55 minutes or so. So I would anticipate scheduled stops maybe starting to roll off here in as soon as 5 minutes.
All right, we'll keep our eye out for that. See if anybody tries to go a bit early. Well, that broke up the battle somewhat between Mayorga and Baccignone, but good holding on to it for Doug. A little bit closer now. It's between Hollander and Duncan. Jad also having to recover from his own mistakes there, and looks like he's been able to run pretty effectively close to Matt Hollander, but still, we've been watching this for quite some laps, and I'm sure the frustration is building just a little bit inside that 83 cockpit, hoping that maybe he can actually get ahead of Matt rather than just looking at that rear bumper.
Yeah, he's certainly going to be hoping to try to see what he can do here, but it just looks like that gap has sort of stabilized a little bit ever since that bobble from Jad Duncan, just not really able to close it down as much. He's so good under braking, though. He keeps getting himself closer coming into that final hairpin.
Update on Doug Baccignone. Had another mistake, not worth a replay, though. He just went a little sideways coming through the first hairpin, and that lost him time. What it did do, though, is we'll go there if it starts to get hot, because right now this is the much better battle, but it's allowed Michael Johnson to get within striking distance of him. This right here is for 9th position between Hollander and Duncan as he continues to reel in the league organizer. AJ in the 17, just in front of them, a lap down, 2 laps down really, about to be lapped. So we'll see if he plays a factor in it.
Yeah, we'll have to see if maybe that comes into play here a little bit. That is one thing we haven't talked about, the lap traffic around here, as AJ does a great job there just sticking out of the way, backing off of the throttle a little bit, and letting this battle continue on out in front of him.
Yeah, very polite move. He knows he's really already got a compromised race, so he doesn't need to compromise anybody else's as Tom Layton takes another fastest lap up at the front of the field. They weave around and through the S's. A lot of little rises and crests through here as well. You can just see them on some of these lower angled shots, and then down through turn 10. Not quite close enough between the pair of them to see any sort of attack into the final corner. I can tell you that Michael Johnson tried an over-under on Baccignone through that same turn there, but did not make it stick, unfortunately. As you can see him within about 0.3 of a second now. That's Doug in the green car. That's Michael in the purple.
And this is all about that pressure cooker game that we talked about, trying to see if he's able to force it here. And this is exactly what I expected Michael Johnson to really do over the course of this race. Drive a clean, calm, cool, and collected race and just try to see if he can make a little bit of an error. And there was the open opportunity. Doug Baccignone running a little bit wide there through turn 4, and that was all the invitation Michael Johnson needed.
Yep, that's up to 7th. He said it so many times to us that he's a better racer than he is a qualifier, and that's really coming true here today. Using it pretty well in this endurance event. 56 minutes left to go. So is this the cusp then for our drivers? And back to Hollander once again, and Jad Duncan still right on top of him, trying to square off the exit of the hairpin as best he can. And then glancing over the yellow and blue curbs as they weave back and forth through the S's. And Matt Hollander looks pretty in control in this part as he once again puts a fair bit of distance between himself and Jad. Yeah, nothing doing there for the 83 once they hit the second hairpin.
Yeah, really just looks like there that Hollander is absolutely able to pull away through the S's, get that gap built up, and really pull himself away. It's pretty much saving his race here at this point, and Duncan just has no response to it.
Ooh. When did BJ Fulton catch up to Paul Newton? It's down to 0.2 of a second. They're going by lap traffic in the form of Momeyer. I wonder if that has anything to do with it. And indeed it does. That slowed up Newton through a very difficult place to try and get out of the way, and Hollander has unfortunately succumbed to the immense pressure of Jad Duncan behind him for lap after lap.
Yes, he has, and we talked about that simmering pressure that just continued to build there, and it looks like there that Hollander just put a tire wrong, and that's what sent him around. That's exactly what Jad Duncan would have wanted to see, save outside of actually getting a pass done. Just a little bit of a mistake like that, and he's going to be on through as Tom Layton just going faster and faster.
So is BJ Fulton. He's once again close enough, but decides not to do it. And Newton, got to give him credit. He's staying cool under this pressure, and Beckner is going to take a tow, or no, who is this that we're looking at? That was Dan Fendick. I think Beckner did take a tow, actually. He was involved in this incident we're hearing. And in fact, 3 separate incidents happened at once in the same corner. This is an incredible example of target fixation. The only one to get away with it is going to be Michael Chang in the yellow car. Look at the other two, unfortunately finding a comedy of errors.
And Joe, that is exactly what can happen sometimes when you're really locked into the race. You see the driver up ahead of you make an error. You see them, your brain goes, don't do the same thing. And you do the same thing. You make a little mistake there. It's kind of like being told, don't think about an elephant. What's the first thing you're going to think about? An elephant.
Exactly. Hollander has come into pit lane because of his incidents. So the 69 looks like he is, I think, taking regular service. And we'll be back out pretty soon. In the meantime, back to Newton and Fulton once again. That's BJ Fulton, as well, as we usually do have 2 Fultons in this series. BJ is still within about those 0.2 of a second that he's been for a number of laps now, as we see the brake lights light up coming into the final hairpin. And Newton then accelerates off the corner. The sun getting awful low coming through there. In fact, oh my goodness, watch this coming up the hill. That's going to be right in their eyes.
Yes, it is, and that is going to be a big, big problem, trying to sight the braking zone a little bit, coming up through there and getting onto the power up in over turn 2, as we've got a big kerfluffle down to the hairpin.
That's Momeyer, and Dung Nguyen, I think, going by him. Was that a pass for position? It was an attempted pass for position. Momeyer was trying to go by Dung, and Nguyen managed to hold him off. They're both back on the track. Looks like Dan Fendick eventually limped it home. So he is in pit lane right now. And trying to see if anybody else has visited recently. Beckner has been in for about 2 minutes, it appears.
Yeah, looks like he is getting some repairs done on the car. Fendick is going to be out and on his way, though. Still waiting for a few more, the majority of the field here at this point, to be able to make that pit stop. And remember, with it being a 90-minute race, we should see that window extending all the way down to about 35 minutes to go.
Yeah, so they've got plenty of time here to try and do what they need to do. So that's why we're not seeing many of them pitting in quite yet. As usually in these GT cars here on iRacing, we see the long first stint is typically the quicker way to go. Lighten the car and have less time on full tanks around this track. Up the hill here, as Paul Newton, again, is just dealing with this magnanimously over the 423. Can't seem to shake him in any form or fashion. So I think BJ is going to have to start getting creative or really get aggressive here to somehow turn that orange. Well, I guess it's orange colored, but it's literally got oranges on it as well.
Yeah, I guess it is, but we're going to see the orange versus the oranges, I guess, here, maybe as it starts to fire itself off.
Yeah, there you see Fulton. Almost a bit of a reverse scheme to what we're seeing there on Paul Newton, but makes them easy to tell apart as they come through the hairpin. Behind them, things have separated between most of the other cars. Although I say that, Sam Mayorga looks like he's being caught by Michael Johnson and Doug Baccignoni. Yeah, you can see him there in the background for a little bit. There they are now, starting to become a 3-car battle.
All right, so we've got a little bit more intrigue starting to build itself up here just a little bit as the field begins to ebb and flow a little bit. And I've got to say here, I expected Michael Johnson to pull away from Doug Baccignoni a little bit more than he has. Doug's doing a fantastic job keeping up behind that purple machine.
Ooh, Latvala off the track at the hairpin. And I think he did this to himself. He loses a couple of the hard-earned positions that he had gained. So let's see if we can get a replay on this one. Guy that probably would have been much farther up the field if it wasn't for his own undoing, and just lost it on its own. Rear end came around, and there was no saving that 22 once it was that far past. So Jad Duncan looks like he, I think, got by in the process, and Corey's got to try and race him back down. Right now, Corey is just behind the lapped car of Mark Bray, so he's going to have to try and overtake him as well, but we'll get blue flags to make it a little bit easier to go on by. Highest driver to have stopped for something official is Matt Hollander. Oh, Michael Chang just came in right now.
All right, so that is going to be the highest driver here coming down pit lane as of now. It looks like Hollander on Rondeau will probably be able to get by him. Shulam, also the latest driver to come down and get that service.
So looks a little bit more like a lot of drivers are splitting this one close to in half. The 45-minute mark would be the official halfway point on this one. But yeah, it's looking like a bit of a strategy I certainly wasn't expecting many of them to do, but a couple are pleased with how it looked on their timing, or just want to try and keep it simple. Regardless, Shulam currently getting fuel, so is Michael Chang. And I think Dong Nguyen and John Momeyer are actually going to go by them in the process. Up at the very front, that was Tom Layton that we were watching on our screen. Here we go back onto the track, and Shulam is just barely going to be passed by Nguyen and Momeyer. That's not good news for him.
No, it is not, but it's going to get us a nice little bit of spicy battle here, as he's going to have to try to pick his way by these slower cars that are a lap down.
Yeah, this could hold him up. This is the disadvantage to pitting that little bit earlier than your rivals if you get caught behind cars that have yet to pit. So it's not happened yet, though. We've been making a big to-do about it, and he still has to deal with them, which he hasn't caught up to them yet. So he's not being slowed down right now, but 371 could potentially be once they get into some of the twisty bits, such as the S's, which will be right after this hairpin.
Yes, it will, and we're going to have to see how that plays itself out. Working down now into those sweepers. The aero wash definitely going to be felt here by Momeyer and the cars behind. Let's see how it plays.
Catching up. It's down to 0.7 of a second behind them. If he can maybe do something on one of the better braking zones and not be held up through the various lefts and rights that kind of dot this track, and he catches up a bunch going through the final hairpin. He's looking to the outside of Momeyer. Not sure if that's a defense from John or if he's intending to maybe let him through. That looks more like a defense to me. Up into turn 2. Oh, but Momeyer offline, gets distracted, goes in deep. Shulam not able to capitalize like I thought he would.
Yeah, I got to agree with you there, Joe. I thought Shulam was going to absolutely pounce all over that, but it just didn't look like he was able to. He has got to try to get a move on here if he wants to not be losing time. This is doing nothing but slowing him down.
Oh, nightmare scenario for the 371. And at about 30 seconds, he will be exactly at the halfway mark of this race. Losing sight of him behind the monstrous hills of this place and among the RVs of all the virtual fans. before he re-emerges down here into the hairpin. Is he going to square it off? Looks like he's trying to. I'm sure Momeyer is wise to that one, and yeah, he gets a decent exit of his own.
Yes, he does. He's going to be able to try to hold that at bay here just for a little bit. Again, that arrow wash really coming back to bite. You can see just how much he is falling behind Momeyer there, courtesy of that arrow wash.
Watching this, and I'm also watching Fulton and Newton, who have once again found one another out on the track. That one's for 4th place, while this one that you're watching is currently for 13th place, being led by Dung Nguyen. Also, can we give that 66 car a little bit of love as well? Because he's doing a fantastic job. We've been praising him recently, making some better inroads on his race pace, as this time Momeyer goes much wider. And I think, yeah, he's not waiting around this time. Oh no, but he spins it. Momeyer manages to avoid, goes off track, has to try and save the car, as that's Corey Lotfula putting a lap on them and just finding a way through. Looks like Momeyer kept it pointed forward, and poor Jeffrey Shulam, he thought he was finally passed, and it unraveled.
Oh my goodness, and it got so close there for John Momeyer. Very, very lucky not to get into problem as Paul Newton and BJ Fulton pitting in line astern.
Okay, so both of them deciding to pit on the same lap, so nobody's going to really find much advantage here, I think, in the pit strategy, unless one of them really has a phenomenally better stop. And looking for his pit stall, Fulton, there he goes, just ahead of him. Paul Newton also finds his position. So where is Hollander going to be in relation to them? He's still heading through the carousel. He's definitely not going to be close enough. He's going to be way far behind this pair by the time they emerge, as long as they have a typical stop like some of the others.
Ooh, looks like a little bit of a slow stop there for Paul Newton. Not sure what happened to him.
Is he maybe taking tires? Or does he have a penalty? I don't see a black flag. Okay, so that is 14 seconds faster for BJ Fulton. Yeah, I wonder if that was a tires call. Let me go back and check. No, I am not seeing him go up on the jacks. That is very strange.
Well, Joe, we're having a pretty big discrepancy here when it comes to pit stop times. Matt Hollander was stationary for about 26 seconds. Looks like about 20 seconds or so is about normal. That's what BJ Fulton, Mark Bray, and Jeffrey Shulam all did. So I'm not sure exactly what was there with Paul Newton. That's not long enough to be a penalty. As you said, no black flag that we could see. Very, very interesting.
So, yeah, and the 19-second stop certainly seems to be the one more in line with what everybody else did in terms of fuel. I wonder if Paul just did not pay attention on what he needs to do for how much fuel he had to put in, and put in that just a little bit more. Ooh, is Michael Johnson having some issues with turn 4. Keeps from turning the car around, but lost a little bit of time to Doug Baccignoni behind him.
Yeah, lost a little bit of time having to catch that, but in there, Baccignoni again doing a great job of just being able to keep up behind. Only about 0.4 of a second behind Michael Johnson here at this point. And again, I want to reiterate this from Doug. Oh, as Fulton goes around.
Oh, and that looks like turn 2. Yeah, it was, and it was all on his own. So BJ Fulton, who had made up all that time on Paul Newton, suddenly finds himself under attack yet again, as Newton's got it down to about 0.4 of a second. Michael Bolton now pits in the 127. So that's one of our front runners. This is the first of our drivers very high up at the top that are pitting in this time. Of course, Fulton and Newton were pretty far up there as well, I guess, since they were fighting for 4th. But this is the first of our podium now, and don't think he's being joined by anybody in that podium. No, he is the lone driver here.
Yeah, he's the only one deciding to pull the trigger here to come on in. Michael Johnson getting a little bit aggressive there with track limits. You can see him kicking up some dust on the exit there of turn 2. He's got to be careful about that.
So Johnson's going to have to give a few positions back once he takes his pit stop. So yes, he's running in 4th right now, but I do not believe that's going to be a net 4th. I think he's probably running somewhere around 8th or 9th currently, which again will be a pretty poor points day for him. In fact, I think that was probably about what he finished as back in Daytona. I need to check the scores exactly because he scored 4 points there on that one. But Doug Boccignone doing a great job there in the green and blue just behind him, making sure to keep the number 9 pretty honest here. Let's see if either of them pits in, because we should be getting nearer to the end of that pit window.
Yeah, it should be coming down here, as I said. I anticipate it closing within about the next 10 minutes or so, and never trust a commentator's math, so that could come back to bite me a little bit, but we'll have to see.
Neither of them decide it's worth trying to pit in on this time. We're down to 19 cars still running. We've lost Aaron Edwards, Alex Filsinger, Ting Wan, and Andrew Beckner from this race. Dong Nguyen, after his pit stop, is back out and running. Now, Dong Nguyen had a 48-second stop, so that was pretty long. I wonder if that seems more like something of a speeding penalty to me, but we'll have to investigate and see if that was the case. But there you see him heading through the final hairpin. He is the final car in the field that is still rolling. Let's hope for his fans' sake that changes as the race goes on, because he's been having a nice, good one out there so far. Not really getting into too many dramas up to this point that have hampered him too greatly. Really, the closest battle on track is still between Johnson and Boccignone. Oh, and we got another one in.
That's going to be Travis Brown coming on down pit lane from 2nd place, so he is the latest to pull the trigger here. Travis Brown coming on in with about 38 minutes left to go in this race.
So the 79 pulls the trigger as Mo Meyer unfortunately goes off in turn 2. That was all on his lonesome. Just dipped the tires into the dirt, and he's trying to stay out of the way for Jeffrey Shulam. Shulam is able to go on by. That's Michael Chang behind him. Brown's hit his, by the way. This is all for position, so I don't know if Mo Meyer's damaged or what, because he didn't hit anything in that spin, I don't think. Let me double check on that.
Yeah, I don't believe Mo Meyer's got any damage on the car. It certainly doesn't look like it from looking at our cameras here, although sometimes that can be a little bit deceiving, specifically with running off track a little bit. You can get some under tray damage. He runs a little bit wide there, though, and another off there for Corey Lotvola.
Man, that's the 3rd one, I think, maybe even more than that. Corey's been having a rough time, and he's going to pit in, so this will give us a better idea of where he sits positionally after all those problems, because we're waiting on that. Travis Brown still the highest driver to have pitted. 23 seconds for the 79 car that he was stationary, which is, again, pretty well in line with a lot of his rivals. The fastest stop of the race is still BJ Fulton at that 19.3.
Yeah, and we haven't seen anybody really get super close to that. I'm going to be curious to see what some of these late stoppers do and whether or not they will be able to make that work in terms of fuel cycle. Otherwise, I'm going to be a little bit worried here about BJ Fulton and his fuel load.
Yeah, we've seen that too many times in these endurance races. Drivers trying to get a little sneaky, trying to be a little bit more economical, both in terms of time and fuel, compared to their rivals, and it comes back to bite them in the end. This is looking over the shoulder of Doug Boccignone that we're watching, with Michael Johnson just in front. Johnson still needs to pit. Doug still needs to pit. So does Tom Layton, Sam Mayorga, and Jad Duncan. Other than that, everybody else has been at least once, but we're expecting a few of them to have to pit in an extra time. AJ in the 17 probably amongst those. I believe Mark Bray probably is going to have to come in, as he pitted 17 laps ago. It looks like Ron Doe 18 laps ago as well. And squaring off the end of the drag strip, Doug is just making sure that Michael constantly knows he's there.
Yeah, just trying to keep that pressure up on Michael Johnson as much as possible. Doug doing a fantastic job just following in those tire tracks and not really putting a tire wrong himself here. We've talked about how easy that can be. Car getting a little bit squirrely there coming through the end of the S's, but he was able to control it nice and easy. That's a car not supposed to be there.
I was going to say, our camera was just trying to find someone, and some of the angles around here can often be a little bit weird. Oh, don't... I thought he was going to trap the car and low center it. Thankfully, it was not the situation that he wound up in.
And he looks like he's going to be able to get that car back rolling, but again, could be some under tray damage to the car affecting the 66 a little bit, and that's not what you're going to want to be having, especially when you're running on older tires.
So, and Mayorga has also spun in the same corner. Not quite, no, he went wide, coming up over 3A. So, ooh, man, big hit for him. Unfortunately, I need to check and see. Yeah, he is able to carry on if the car is handling okay. But it looks like he's going to get overtaken by Jad Duncan here, who slides up the inside. This is for 4th position, but both drivers still need to come in for a pit stop. And now's probably a good time for the 183, especially if he did get damage from that.
Yeah, I'd have to think so, Joe. And in those pit stops, it can be a good little bit of a mental reset for the driver. You come down pit lane, you're stationary for a little bit. You can stretch your legs out a little bit, stretch out your arms, kind of release some of the muscles that you've been working for the past about hour at this point, and really just kind of calm your brain for a second before you head back out on track.
Oh, and Mayorga is indeed in. So there you see him slowing up. So that leaves now only 4. Tom Layton, Michael Johnson, Doug Baccione, and Jad Duncan. My goodness, Tom Layton's gap over Michael Johnson is 49 seconds right now. It is pretty huge. So there he is. Let's see if he decides that's far enough here. Nope, he is going to carry on for another lap, starting lap 40 here as soon as he crosses the start-finish line. Mayorga is losing multiple positions. Travis Brown's gone by. Michael Bolton has gone by. I think he might lose out to Fulton. It's going to be very close here. We're watching our leader up and over turn 2. Yeah, Mayorga still about, wow, 27-second stop for Sam Mayorga. Another driver with a very long stop. Newton goes by and BJ Fulton goes by.
Yeah, again, we're seeing some discrepancies here when it comes to this pit stop, Joe, and I'm very confused as to exactly what it is. So we're going to have to talk to some people after the race. I wonder at this point if it's drivers just filling up the tank all the way rather than filling back into what they need to finish.
Yeah, I think that's the case. Doug Baccione finally pits in, but on a different strategy from Michael Johnson. Michael's going that little bit longer. Who will find that paying off as Doug looks for his pit stall? One of the weirdest and most awkward pit lanes out there. Gets a little bit narrow in there, and it goes around a few kinks in the process before eventually he is able to find where his crew is set up. So Travis Brown goes by, and then Michael Bolton should easily go past, along with BJ Fulton and Paul Newton. This is the man that Doug is racing, even though not directly. It's through strategy from here that he's trying to outsmart and outrun, as Michael Johnson in the purple machine is up to the dizzying heights of 2nd place today, but is going to have to hand that back to a lot of his rivals rather shortly. And back out on track, how long was it for Baccione? 28.7 seconds, another long one.
A little bit interesting there, Joe. I'm not sure what's going on with these pit stops. I'm starting to think here a little bit that BJ Fulton may have massively underfueled the car. Either that or he is a strategy genius and sees something that none of us are.
Well, we've seen multiple drivers have 20 to 23 second stops, so 19 seconds isn't too outrageous if those 20 to 23 can get you to the finish. By the way, Johnson carrying on, does not pit in this time. And yeah, about 5 minutes max. I got to think that he'll be able to go before the car is absolutely out of fuel behind him. Dong Nguyen, who just got lapped, has Jad Duncan, who is able to sneak by. Jad trying to catch up to Michael Johnson, but he's got to make up about 3 seconds if he has hopes of overtaking him.
Well, and that may come down to a little bit of pit stop strategy potentially, as our leader, Tom Layton, comes down pit lane right after the 1 hour mark.
Because of all the pit stops and because of him going long. Oh, Latvala again. This time, it looks like pretty bad damage on the exit of turn 2. Not seeing that car looking like it's ready to go. I wonder if he's really done it now. And that was just him coming up and over the crest of 2 and completely losing control of the car.
Let's take a look here at exactly what happened. Just drives it in way too much speed into that corner, misses the corner altogether, and hard impact out to the outside wall.
I can confirm he took a tow. I fear that Corey Latvala is going to call it quits for today. Yes, he's out. Corey Latvala is our latest retiree from this race, but Michael Johnson probably not going to be quitting here. He's coming in for his regular service. Remember, it was Doug Boccignone that he was battling with. Jad Duncan stays out for a whole nother lap. And just to tell you how much Tom Layton is dominating the field, he did not lose the lead with his pit stop.
My goodness gracious, that is, dare I say it, a Schumacher-esque performance here from the 97 of Tom Layton.
Well, yeah, and Duncan still needed a pit stop, is 12 seconds behind. Oh my goodness, it's about 23 to 24 for Travis Brown, who has finished his pit stop, so he's good to go to the finish. But barring Tom Layton making a major mistake or running into bad luck, and Michael Johnson's in long. I'm not seeing a black flag. 38 seconds. What is going on? 40 seconds. Something's wrong here for Michael Johnson's stop. He's losing a lot of... I don't know if he's doing that intentionally. If he did, I'm telling you, if you're watching this back right now, Michael, that was a mistake.
Yeah, that's going to drop him well down the order. He's going to find himself all the way down in 9th place as a result of that. Jad Duncan, by the way, finally coming down pit lane as of right now. But Michael now has about 15 seconds to try to make up to Sam Mayorga. And even with that fresh set of boots, I think that's going to be a pretty tall ask.
Yeah, I'm looking at it, and the laps at the end of the stint are pretty similar to the beginning of the stint for Sam Mayorga. So yeah, I think Michael did not anticipate what little effect the fresh tires were going to have here, as he's going to try and put a lap on John Molmeyer, because he's got to do that one first. Jad Duncan finally pits in as well, by the way. So our podium is now a much clearer picture. Layton, obviously, we knew was going to be on the top spot. Travis Brown in second. Michael Bolton in third. Bolton's the only one of those three that has changed his position. He's gone up 1 from where he started.
Yeah, he was able to take advantage there a little bit. Paul Newton obviously falling down through the field a little bit, but we've got a nice little battle. This is BJ Fulton and Jad Duncan.
Yeah, Duncan came out right side by side with the orange and blue number 423, and it looks like Fulton is going to be able to get through, and oh, Jad Duncan can't hold back Paul Newton either. So both drivers managing to make quick work over the yellow 83 car. And just a little bit more fierce of a defense, I think maybe would have held them back, but it was not to be. And I got to imagine that Michael Johnson probably would have been in the thick of this, because if he had a 18-second faster stop, yeah, he would have been pretty close to them.
Yeah, I think he would have as well, and we'd have a nice little four-way battle on our hands, but unfortunately, it just doesn't look like it shook out that way for Michael Johnson. Again, that 48-second stop that he had, taking tires in the process, coming back to bite the driver there at the number 9.
Meanwhile, watching this fight carry on down into the hairpin. Oof, mighty deep on the brakes. We've seen that a lot today from Jad Duncan. Seems to be doing okay for him, though it hasn't been a perfect race out there for the 83. Newton in front of him, who has been overtaken by Fulton, is struggling to keep up with that 423. Now that he's past the blue car, it seems like BJ is ready to wave goodbye.
Yeah, BJ already putting a second there in between, starting to pull up ahead. Jad Duncan, though, still having a little bit of hopes of being able to keep up behind Paul Newton a little bit, and still with plenty of race left to run here. About 25 minutes left to go. We've got to remember that everybody, with the exception of Michael Johnson, hasn't taken tires. This rubber on the track right now is worn in, and the track's getting a little bit cooler. That means the tires are going to be in a good operating window, but they are going to be worn very, very hard.
So the first flying lap back, Michael Johnson ran a 29 flat. His best lap is a 28.8, and that was 26 laps into his first stint. So I'm not too confident. However, Sam Mayorga's running 29.5, 29.7, 29.6. So he is faster than Sam, but it's 14 seconds that he's got to make up, and half a second a lap. It'll be right on the cusp on whether or not I think he'll catch up to that 183.
Yeah, it's going to be close here, Joe, but we'll have to see. If anybody can put in some good, consistent, quick laps here, I will give credit. It is Michael Johnson.
Yep, he knows how to be consistent as well, so you never know. This might not be over. Just got to wait and see. 23 more minutes in the race, and he's got to try and do his darndest on this one. Jad Duncan, in the meantime, does not like the fact that he's been passed by BJ Fulton and Paul Newton, because ever since Newton got by, he's been hounding that blue 27 corner after corner.
Yeah, he's been certainly keeping up behind here, as has Jad Duncan. All three of them running in good lines together. I think we've got a good little battle happening behind between Shulam and Chang, though. They were very, very close to one another, going side by side down through the hairpin.
Gotta love the action that we've been getting from Sonoma here today. Kind of impressed with how much side-by-side action we've actually managed to get. Certainly has not been short of it. But coming up over turn 2, Michael Chang and Jeffrey Shulam. Chang currently up 6 spots and actually tied for hard charger currently. John Momeyer, the other one, up 6 positions. So if Chang gets by, then hard charger goes to John Momeyer. Granted, that is not worth any extra points, but I'm sure it will be a little feather in the cap of John.
Yeah, it's certainly something that you always want to try to strive for a little bit. As you said, no points awarded, but it's definitely one of those things that will carry you on into the next race, carry you forward with a little bit of a smile, as it were. As we just saw there, that was a little bit of a wide run there for Chang.
Yeah, just a bit, but there's a lot of room to the outside to try and run wide. Might not be fast, but it's all paved at least for him. So it all worked out in the end because he hasn't lost the position either. Still, Shulam about half a second in front of him. And this and the battle between Newton and Duncan really are two best currently. Everybody else all spreading out. Everybody else is all done with their pit stop. So if you're going to make a pass, you got to do it on the track from here.
Yep, there is no excuse here at this point with 20 minutes left to go. You have got to do what you have got to do on track, and that is the only way to get anything done. That's going to amp up the pressure here for these drivers. And Joe, at this point in the race, they are tired both physically and mentally at this point. Remember, a lot of these guys driving with direct drive wheels that put a lot of force into those actual wheels, and that can really wear your arms out driving this long of a race.
Remember all the problems that Dan Fendick had? He's starting to catch up to these guys. So this is becoming a three-way fight now. And John Momeyer in front of them is going to have to step to the side, I think, here in just a second. Hopefully he does not catch them out, although I'm sure the likes of Chang and Fendick would like him to act as a pick.
Yeah, I'm sure they would as well, but just trying to get out of the way there, as is the courtesy of lap traffic. As we said, lots of drivers here in this series very, very courteous when it comes to those blue flags.
Meanwhile, flying through turns in, there you can see how close they're getting to the back of that red and yellow car. Oh, actually, nope, they're going to go by him because Momeyer just spun. I lost sight of him and wondered where he went. The answer is into the parking lot, or so what they used to call the island here for a while when NASCAR was visiting and didn't have enough pit stalls. So John Momeyer is now down to 17th. Actually, did AJ Lethierry go by? No, he did not.
Yeah, Lethierry not able to get by there, so he's going to still be behind as there goes the 79 out on by Momeyer, completing that pass here.
Well, at the start, we talked about the fact that Travis Brown had pulled an upset last time. He needed that moral victory over Tom Layton, an actual victory after he took the win there at Daytona. But it seems like Tom Layton is fighting back and just trying to stomp the charge into the ground, because look at how far away he is from everybody else. Brown is 30 seconds behind him here today. What came down to a last lap battle for the victory between the pair is nowhere near doing that today. So Travis going to have to regroup and hope that he has the mental fortitude to try and withstand this beating that he's getting.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a little bit tricky there to be able to come back from that, I've got to say. But I think if you're the rest of the field here, you have just got to be hoping for some of these shorter sprint races and dare I say it, maybe a little bit of misfortune to come to Mr. Perfect thus far in this season in the 97 of Tom Layton.
Mr. Perfect, I like that nickname. I'm sure he'll like that one too, although he is relatively humble, so maybe he'll kind of shrug that one off a little bit. You can see the headlights now starting to really glare off the road as the sun is, I think, actually below the horizon at this point, definitely below the hills off to the side of the track. And yeah, you can't really see it over there. We get a beautiful orange California sunset for the final 15 minutes of this race. And thankfully, it's no longer in the eyes of the drivers at this stage. Layton just one by one lapping the various cars. That's about all he's had to worry about pretty much since the drop of the green flag.
Yeah, he really hasn't had a whole lot to contend with, but even with that in mind, Joe, being able to pick your way through lap traffic around this tricky Sonoma circuit is nothing to shake a stick at. We've got to give credit there to Layton, and he's continued to build his gap over all of it.
So as I look through, our battles have kind of broken up. We were watching Newton and Duncan for so long, and now Newton is far behind that. However, one thing we should mention is that that problem for Paul Newton meant that Doug Baccignone is now up into 6th position. So Doug is doing pretty good out there here in California. Nice job with that green 59 machine. And let's see, who is our hard charger right now amongst the drivers? I think it's a tie once again. 5 up for Michael Chang, 5 up for John Momeyer. Very close for Paul Newton. No, he's down 4, excuse me. I'm looking at the wrong direction there on Paul's arrow. So the 7th place cars definitely had a bit of a rough day.
Yeah, not exactly what you want to see. Corey Lotfella, though, unfortunately, the biggest faller over the course of the field as he has parked the car down 9 spots. Corey's day just really going from bad to worse since the drop of the green flag.
Now, the good news is for the drivers, they do have 4 drop weeks that they are allowed. So I got to think that for Lotful, this is going to be one of those, as I think it's going to be scored. I don't think it's scored as a DNF because I think he did enough of the laps that he'll get the 2 points. It's only a 1-point difference between a DNF and just being lower than 10th position. But he's already got 1-2 score in there, and that was at round 4, which was back at Road Atlanta.
And so as we get farther and farther into the season, those drop weeks are going to have to be factored in more and more and more. It's going to be very, very crucial to try to minimize those drop weeks that you get as you want to build as many points as possible and have the drop weeks that you build in be points that you gain back ostensibly.
So as we head on over to BJ Fulton now, coming on to the front stretch. So he's got Jad Duncan still, there behind him, but it's about 3 seconds, so he's at arm's length for now. But really, the main problem for him is that if he had any sights of a podium, he's lost it because it's about 15 seconds up to Michael Bolton currently. So he had just, I think, messed around a little too long sitting behind Newton. If he had that extra pace, he didn't get to use it because he ran away from Paul Newton pretty quickly after he was finally passed. And, well, he can do nothing but simply try and hope and take it to the checkered flag from here as he hits the bottom of the hill of the carousel. We are starting to lose a lot of our battles. I'm looking through. I think the closest one is Shulam and Fendick still for 13th place. It's about a second separating them, so that's still pretty far apart. There you see them on the screen right now. Everybody else, though, has kind of found themselves a little bit of racetrack and are just focusing on their own race.
Well, and let's not forget here that that can certainly be a tricky thing to do here at Sonoma, especially with the light coming down a little bit. That's going to change your perception of the track. It's going to change your braking markers a little bit. The headlights are going to start to illuminate a little bit more, and drivers are going to have to be careful. Now, in terms of this battle that we're watching right now, Joe, the thing here that Fendick is going to have to do is he's going to have an advantage going through Sector 3 through the S's that he's not going to have to deal with that aero wash. It may see him be able to catch up just a little bit if he can be a little bit better under the binders.
Indeed. Wonderful to see him flashing the lights as well, just trying to distract Shulam where he can through those S's. Meanwhile, this is Johnson, and he is actually going to get lapped. That tells you the pace difference and how much those tires cost him, taking that change of rubber in the pit stops. Johnson, but that does cause some consternation for Tom Layton, who slips up coming over turn 2. And then Johnson doesn't try and fight too hard. Oh, he's going to get into the back of him. And again, I think they're going to be okay. But that was a very clumsy exchange between two very experienced drivers.
Yeah, it was, and a little bit surprising, I think is the best word. I would not have expected that there out of those two, and I think that goes a little bit to the point I was making about the mental and physical fatigue this long into an hour-and-a-half race. You're just seeing that sort of mental slip there out of the two drivers.
Yeah, assuredly they've got to be a bit tired. And for poor Michael Johnson, it's a bit later in the evening compared to a lot of his rivals. Most of these guys are out on the West Coast, whereas Michael is hailing from Texas on Central Time. So 2 hours difference for him. It's already about 11:40. Don't know what his bedtime is, but he's certainly getting a workout before he's going to have to get some shut-eye and probably head off for one of his coaching sessions after that. But right now he's following a master. He often talks about this: when you follow a faster car, take mental notes furiously and try and pick up some tips.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the things you can do here at this point in the race. And it does look like Jeffrey Shulam and Dan Fendick have closed down a little bit. That battle down to 0.6 of a second right now. So we've got a little bit of a race on our hands back here for 13th.
And that still matters to these guys. Yes, it's going to score the same points between them, But there is the pride involved in that, coming from a long way back. Fendick absolutely sends it, but it does not stick. So the 327 will have to regroup and try again later. But assuredly, that had to have rattled Jeffrey Shulam with him coming from so far behind.
Yes, it does, and that's going to get into Shulam's head here a little bit. He's going to be looking in that rearview mirror through almost every major braking zone now that he knows that Fendick is on that charge. And so for Fendick, he's going to be able to maybe use that to his advantage a little bit and try to take advantage of some of the trepidation that he may be feeling.
Absolutely. This is where that mental game comes in handy. You've got that fortitude to try and rebuff your rivals, and so far it looks like Shulam's doing a good job of responding, because Fendick was a lot closer before, and now suddenly I wonder if that just woke him up inside that 371, and now he feels the fire lit underneath.
Yes, he does, and he's certainly charging a little bit. He's able to grow that gap back upwards of a second right now. Definitely trying to pull away here. I think he definitely doesn't want to feel any more pressure.
Yeah, this has got to be close to the end of the race. It's getting a little later in the evening. Surely he's got to be a bit tired, and that one just kind of shook him up, and now he is on his way. Meanwhile, as they come down into the braking, this time didn't have to defend, but still I'm sure he was watching those mirrors carefully.
Yeah, I'm sure he was as well. As there they run their way through the corners now, crossing over the line with only about 9 minutes to go. Fendick's been able to bring it back down to about 7/10.
There's an interesting camera angle on board with Shulam. What if we could go back to that one on the 371? We have an interesting question here, and I know we've got a few Porsche experts who tend to watch, if not live, some of them post broadcast. What are those buttons? Are those even buttons there on the sides of the frame? We're trying to figure out what those do.
I mean, they certainly look like buttons to me. I don't know what else they would be. Maybe some kind of adjustment there for the roll cage, potentially? I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe a roll bar adjustment of some sort. I'm not sure. That's really odd. It's just our director had pointed them out, and now that's got me extremely curious. So somebody in the peanut gallery, chime in and let us know what exactly those are supposed to do. This car is the Porsche 911 GT3R. It's the GT, the actual GT3 version, not the weird Porsche denomination of the GT3, but this time it looks like Fendick has another shot at it. This time he's not coming from way far back. This time it is a valid effort, and it's going to be a successful pass as well. That puts him into 13th, but now he's got to switch gears. He's got to play defense instead.
Well, and that's going to be a different thing altogether, Joe, is he is going to have to do it. Takes a wide line there up and into turn one. That's going to allow him to carry a little bit more speed. That's going to be good news for him. The question is if he can just hold on to it here.
I'm pretty certain he's going to have to hold on with both hands, because Shulam's not going to be happy that he gave that one up so close to the finish. He's going to want to try and get right back by, no doubt. But I think Fendick is trying to turn it up a bit. He's now stretching away. It's already up to 1.1 second ahead of Jeffrey Shulam. So he has turned on the NOS, and now he's going to try and see if he can get enough of a buffer that he doesn't have to fret anymore. He certainly is not catching up to Mark Bray unless Mark makes a mistake. It's 22 seconds up to the next car, so 13 is probably the highest he's going to see. But I'm sure he'll be proud of himself if he can hold on to this spot, knowing he took it pretty much in the dying stages.
Well, that is always a good feeling, especially when you've been working on a battle like that for so long. It can just be so rewarding to be able to do that and to be able to just get that one position. You know, we talked a little bit earlier about the movement up through the field here for the likes of Michael Chang to be able to carry that momentum into the next race. Being able to get that last move done like that for Fendick, it's going to feel the same way. And by the way, he is now tied for the biggest mover with Michael Chang, up 5 positions.
Nicely done. Also, bad news for fans of Paul Newton. I guess we kind of commentators cursed him today, saying he's been doing a good job lately, because since then it's been a bit miserable. Had a spin coming through turn 4. Now he just lapped Momar I don't think Momar should have been an issue in this. He maybe could have distracted him a little bit, but that was definitely all on Paul Newton for losing it on his own.
Yeah, there was no contact there. Could have been a little bit of distraction there, as you said, but I really can't put any blame on anybody besides Newton for that one.
So now he's in 8th position because of that one. And actually, Michael Johnson catches up to him because of that. So Michael's now got a carrot dangled in front of him. Can he manage to catch it before the last 5 minutes? It's about 1.1 seconds between himself and Paul Newton. And Michael's probably ecstatic that he's caught back up to Paul after he was probably going to be racing him earlier on. And Paul's probably wondering, where did I go wrong that now I am racing Michael Johnson in this race, who's been nowhere near me this whole time?
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a change of fortune here. Only about 9/10 of a second. Rondeau down pit lane.
Oh, that is interesting. Now, we mentioned that Rondeau might have to come back in again, and I wonder if this is fuel. Did he pit a little bit too early on this one? He's looking for his pit stall. Only had to make it maybe 3 more laps. So he must have either really short fueled it or just come in way too early. Trying to figure out where that first stop was for him. Lap 18, I think it was.
Well, and the question now is going to be is if anybody else who made that short fuel stop, if they're going to be in trouble, looking at the likes of Chad Duncan.
Yeah, that's a good point. So will Jad also find himself under threat here? Of course, Mark Rondeau comes out behind him, but he's a lap down, so that's not for position. But he's that reminder that Jad does not want right now, that he may have short fueled it just a little bit. Of our top 4 runners, though, the slowest stop was Michael Bolton at 25 seconds. The fastest was BJ Fulton at 19.3. So, again, somebody may have got it wrong on that one.
Yeah, we're going to have to see here. About 3.5 minutes left to go. It is now or never time for these drivers. Now, let's be clear. This could have been an instance here where Mark Rondeau maybe just was using the fuel a little bit too much, and the likes of Fulton and Duncan knew they underfueled the car and were a little bit lighter. Oh, we've got a car off.
That, is that Dung Nguyen there? No, that's the 17. That's AJ Letary. So he's not going to lose or gain anything in that process. He had nobody near him. It's been a bit of a quiet day after he lost his positions, unfortunately. So that's why we see him where he is right now. But Michael Johnson still is our closest fight with Paul Newton. In fact, this is a good run. I don't think he's close enough for an attack into this one, but it is forcing Paul Newton to go defensive down into that corner. So the 27 is feeling it.
Yes, he is, and you saw there when Newton went defensive, that was Michael Johnson deliberately going to the outside a little bit there, as Tom Layton, as just, I think, a bit of a tip of the cap to the rest of the field, sets the fastest lap of the race. Now they've got John Momeyer up ahead of him, though. This could get a little bit interesting with lap traffic.
And not going to have to deal with it all that much longer, because Tom Layton's going to get the white flag next time by, and man, he wants that to be a pick. Momeyer's going to try and get out of the way, and this might actually be a pick as he cuts to the inside, but he can't get the launch coming off of turn 4. Still, that was frighteningly close as they come down into the braking of turn 6. He's all over him now, trying to climb over that rear wing, but he loses some time mid-corner, washes out, and what was nearly his front bumper to the back bumper of Newton has backed away. He could go for the over-under here. DJ is going to think about it, but nothing doing.
Yeah, just wasn't able to build the speed, wasn't able to build the traction. There was Michael Johnson. He's going to have to hold back in line here. Hope he can keep up behind the aero wash through the S's and maybe get a good pass down into 11.
This is not over. This is definitely not over. They're going to get the white flag as well. They'll do 1 lap less than Layton, who's actually getting it right now. There he is as Barney waves it frantically, letting him know these 90 minutes are about done. But Johnson had another look coming down into the final hairpin. It didn't pay off. He'll get one more lap to see if he can get to 8th.
And it looks like he lost a little bit of time there crossing over the start-finish line. Tries to gain it back up, under breaking that gap, sitting at about a half a second now as they cross over 2.
Up and over 3A. Johnson looking like he's not close enough. He's going to need a very good exit on one of these corners and an aggressive attack if he hopes to try and take this spot. And this is all just to try and salvage some points here. Travis Brown is most likely still going to overtake him in the points race today. It might be a little close, though. It'll depend on if he can get this spot into 8th position. Watch them coming through the S's. Through the S's soon, rather, I should say. He's going to be too far behind. Yeah, he needed much more than that on that run, as this man in the 97 is going to make it 8 wins in 13 races. This has just been domination all season, and he's not letting up. He may have little hiccups here and there, but unfortunately for everybody else, Tom Layton knows how to drive a car and drive it well. He takes the win at Sonoma.
A dominant drive yet again from Layton. As we jump back here, it looks like Michael Johnson gonna be just that far back, and he's not gonna be able to get the move done there for 8th on Paul Newton.
All jumbled up through the field as they're coming across on different laps here. And we do have, no, not a battle, excuse me. This is just coming around for 3rd. So Travis Brown is just crossing the line now, so he'll officially take 2nd place. And Michael Bolton is going to put himself onto the podium. Bolton having a bit of an up and down season, but this is easily his best, as it's his first podium this season in 2022 for the Porsche Owners Club. That's going to take us to a quick break. We're going to come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interview, so stick around.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to ride around the world.
I'm Mick Claridge, and I'm going to ride around the world on my bike. My son, he gave me advice at the start of this ride, and he looked at me and just said, "Dad, don't be a moron."
Let me do my animal signal to gain their respect.
How's it going, Sally? Yeah, I'm alright, Mick. How's it going?
Worse than that bit in Lord of the Rings where they go into the top and the spiders in the tunnel. I'm just hoping there's a spider at the top of this one to kill me.
Freezing.
And I failed. I moroned up the ride.
Welcome back to Sonoma Raceway. Round 13 for the Porsche Owners Club Series went to Tom Layton again. And this time he basically dominated the field. Nobody could touch him in this 90-minute enduro. Travis Brown, look at that, 31 seconds between them at the finish line. But Travis taking the valuable points to try and keep him honest at the very least. Michael Bolton got his first podium this season, as BJ Fulton was another one distantly behind there in 4th. Jad Duncan was P5, and then Doug Boccignone managed to get 6th today. Sam Mayorga was the last one on the lead lap, only 7 cars finishing all 61 laps today. Paul Newton finished in 8th ahead of Michael Johnson, who unfortunately made a bit of a mistake in the pit stop strategy. And then Matt Hollander rounds out your top 10 behind them.
In 11th place, it was Mark Rondeau, the last of the drivers to finish a single lap down, followed by Mark Bray 2 laps down, with Dan Fendick, Jeffrey Shulam, and Michael Chang behind them. AJ Letary was 3 laps down in 16th, followed by Dung Nguyen, with John Momeyer in 18th behind them, and then we get into the DNFs here on the day, unfortunately.
Yep, but up in front of it all, Tom Layton, as I mentioned, taking an impressive win, really showing what can be done out there. Very clean. Only a little bit of a hiccup at one point, but otherwise, he went from start to finish without any major dramas that we could see. So, Tom, up front, other than you and Michael Johnson having just a little bit of miscommunication at one point, this seemed pretty straightforward for you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, my whole strategy was just to do well in qualifying and just get up front and stay up front, because it is hard to pass here. Even when someone's trying to let you pass, it's still hard to pass. So try to just get out front and conserve tires. Knew it was going to be a long race, especially that one fast right-hander toward the end. It gets a little bit sketchy there as the tires wear down. So trying to just keep from wearing down my tires and just stay consistent.
And yeah, consistency has really been one of your strong suits this season. You've only had a couple that you've shown up for that you haven't won. In fact, you're, I believe, 8 out of 13 right now. That is an incredible stat. But do you pay attention to things like that, the stats and the numbers?
Yeah, somewhat. I mean, but it doesn't stop me from pushing, from trying to learn and improve, because you got to keep pushing.
Well, we're going to leave North America for a little bit for a single round over in Europe, going to Spa. Definitely going to be something of a contrast to here with all the long, fast straights.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I think these tracks that have a lot of good passing opportunities like Spa, and as we saw at Daytona, they just produce some good racing. So I think Spa is going to be a lot of fun.
Well, congratulations on another win. You put on a clinic here today, sir.
All right. Yeah, thank you. And I'd just like to thank my sponsors, FR Sport. Thank you guys for putting on a good broadcast, and thank all my competitors for giving us a good time.
That was Tom Layton there in the 97 car, who was followed home by Travis Brown, who may have actually taken second in the points after this race.
Yeah, indeed, Travis. It looked like a relatively quiet race there out for you, but a good result, and we think it moves you on up to second in the championship.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll take it. And it was definitely a quiet one. It was one of those just kind of try and stay focused and not get distracted or listen to all the chat on Discord.
Well, I mean, how hard is that over the course of an hour and a half race? We were talking about sort of the mental drain and the physical drain as well. How are you coping with it?
I'll be honest, it's not my favorite. I don't like the longer races for that very reason. It's I just try and give myself a lap time target, and then try and be within 0.2 of that. It's kind of my mental game, and sometimes I'll find you get bored and I want to push a little harder just to see if I can get that purple lap, but it's never worth it to overheat the tires and potentially, lose it going through that final sweeper there. So yeah, just trying to play it safe.
Well, as we look ahead here in the schedule, as Joe sort of said in our last interview there with Tom, we head overseas. How do you like the next couple of tracks coming up? Obviously, a few more passing opportunities than here at Sonoma.
Yeah, no, I definitely like them a lot more than Sonoma. This is it's a fun track to drive, but a tough one to race on. So looking forward to having some more tracks with passing opportunities, and hopefully I can take a little bit more of a fight to Tom, because he definitely earned it tonight. Dominant victory. So tip of the hat to him.
Well, tip of the hat indeed. But is there anybody you would like to thank for the run here today?
I gotta give my wife a shout out and thank you for just again always being so supportive and encouraging me in the hobby. So it's fun times.
Well, we always got to give our significant others thanks to be able to do that. But thank you, and congratulations again on a good result.
Thanks, guys.
All right, that was Travis Brown, your second place finisher, and now Joe, I believe you've caught up with our third place finisher, Michael Bolton.
Yes, and Michael, congratulations. First podium of the season. Now that you've got that off your back, do you feel like more can come?
Oh, man. What a relief. Yes, my first podium feels incredible. Just what a lonely race. And 90 minutes at Sonoma feels like an eternity. So happy to have the car and bring it home safe.
Now, you were pretty close at a number of races. You had a couple fourth places, some fifth places in there. So you were kind of knocking on the door. But what do you think about this place that really helped you kind of tip it over the edge?
Well, this is, a track that I'm somewhat familiar with, but been doing some coaching with Michael Johnson. So shout out to Mr. Johnson. I think definitely honing my skills and just seat time, getting consistent, and using every possible inch of the track. But huge shout out to him for helping me get to where I'm at.
Oh, that is great stuff to hear that he was able to kind of help you finally get that done. So we were talking to the other two about Spa coming along here, and we've also got the enduro, the Auto Club one, the 3-hour coming up in a few races time. So since this endurance race kind of treated you well, do you expect that maybe that one is another good chance to try and go one better to second, or maybe even a win?
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty brutal. I think Rondo and I are definitely going to have to team up for the Auto Club race again, because we were a great teammate last season. I believe we got P2. So looking forward to that. Always love driving Spa, love going to the Spa. I'll probably go to the Spa after this. So looking forward to the rest of the season.
Yeah, you deserve some relaxing after what was probably a pretty grueling race. Congratulations, and can't wait to see you in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you so much, Joe.
Michael Bolton there, finishing third in that 127 machine, which is going to wrap us up. So, of course, we got to give a thank you to our sponsors, including Porsche. There is no substitute. Find out more at Porsche.com. And Sunset Mortgage. Don't put your money in the bank. Be the bank. Check them out today at sunsetcash.net, as well as Octavio Tequila. Celebrate now. For a great tasting tequila, go to octaviotequila.com and purchase today. And finally, Century Financial Consultants, making the rest of your life the best of your life. You can check out their website at centuryretire.com. A big thank you to the team today, DJ, Zach, and Dougie. Make sure you check out our social media, our website, and merchandise store. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment. The next time out, as we mentioned, will be Spa, Monday, July 25th at 11 p.m. Eastern. Be sure to check out our other broadcasts listed here. And until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.